got some ties and shirts and the whole nine.
Yes.
I'm green with envy.
I'm clearly loved, no doubt about that.
Right.
You know,
Nice.
It's like that.
Love by
Belated.
me.
Yes.
Well, his family, friends. Anyway, our show is packed today. NFL veteran Jonathan Vilma is here. He'll be our football analyst for the day, weighing in on all topics throughout the league. Plus, Bryant Bosworth will join the desk. I saw him in the makeup room. It was interesting. He wasn't getting makeup, but I saw him walk past. And it was interesting.
He was one of the most fascinating college football players ever.
And that is what that 30 for 30 is all about. It will be featured next week. He'll be here to tell us a little more about his story. But first, on Tuesday, the Dallas Cowboys waived defensive end Michael Sam from their practice squad. Cowboys made news signing the first openly gay football player to their squad after Sam didn't make the roster for the Rams. Michael Sam tweeted the following after the news was let out. I want to thank the Jones family and the entire Cowboys organization for this opportunity, as well as my friends, family, teammates, and fans for their support. While this is disappointing, I will take the lessons I learned here in Dallas and continue to fight for an opportunity to prove that I can play every Sunday. That was Michael Sam's message. Garrett said that Sam was a hard worker in practice and he still needs to continue to work on his skills. So perhaps another opportunity for Sam in the future. But as for now, your reaction, Skip Bayless.
Stephen A. Smith, you know all too well I am a Dallas Cowboy fan. And as a Cowboy fan, I was surprised and disappointed when I heard this news yesterday. Scratch that. I was shocked and disappointed. I've said many times on this show, when Michael Sam was at Missouri, I loved him as a high motor pass rush specialist who always jumped off my TV screen. And all he was the SEC co-defensive player of the year. No small accomplishment. And by the way, when he did get into games late for the St. Louis Rams preseason games, he had 3 high motor sacks in the preseason.
6 tackles in one game.
Not bad. So I accepted the fact that the reason the Rams could not keep him was clearly they were loaded most at his position. And out of nowhere came that undrafted free agent that we talked about, Ethan Westbrook, who became the rising star of their training camp as a defensive end. So I thought, okay, they had just too many better defensive ends. He's on the market, and he's a steal for my Dallas Cowboys. What was I most concerned about with my Cowboys coming into the season? Biggest weakness, no pass rush. Continues to be their biggest weakness, no pass rush. They have now 7 sacks, tied for 3rd worst in the National Football League. Only 2 by defensive ends. So silly me. I thought Michael Sam could take 6 or 8 weeks to learn under Rod Marinelli, maybe the greatest teacher of defensive ends going right now in the National Football League. And maybe by week 9, 10, 11, Michael Sam could give my Cowboys a little high motor pop as a defensive end specialist pass rusher down the stretch. So, Stephen A., I sit back and I say, okay, I get it that he's undersized, and I get it that he's not the biggest guy or fastest guy or strongest guy or most agile guy, but I thought he's one of those guys who, when the lights were brightest, played at his emotional best. Maybe he was a better game player, and we've seen this before, brought it up on the show before, better in games than he ever was in practice. But I'm going to have to accept now, he just didn't show them enough in practice to hang on with the Dallas Cowboys. And I think this is actually a loss because I thought it was going to be a steal.
I think that I can respect and appreciate your position, but I think you're wrong. I think you're missing the boat on this, Skip Bayless. In the end, what it comes down to is this. I'm not surprised at all because Michael Sam, once he was cut by the St. Louis Rams, wasn't going to be a part of the NFL, at least for right now. You had a lot of people who don't believe he was ready. I've always maintained the position, and although I'm sure Jerry Jones will be on the record and disagreeing with me, I'm sure the NFL will be on the record and disagreeing with me, I have always been of the position that Jerry Jones took Michael Sam on the Dallas Cowboys as a favor to the NFL. The NFL is something that they denied, but if you recall, Skip Bayless, when the Dallas Cowboys picked him up, I came on the air and I talked about how I was hearing that there were people in the NFL league office that had called teams and essentially let them know nobody was prodding anybody, nobody was trying to force anything, but they were essentially encouraging teams to give Michael Sam a chance because obviously the NFL are forward thinkers, they're liberal-minded. And clearly this is something having the first actively gay professional football player. They believe the time has arrived for that. And obviously we all agree with that. You should be judged on your performance, on your ability to play the game, not on anything else. And you didn't want to get the impression, or you didn't want the NFL to have the image as being a league where teams would be willing to ostracize a particular athlete because of their sexual orientation. And so as a result of that, when he got let go by the St. Louis Rams, it was a situation where you had a lot of teams that didn't want to touch him. And the NFL, from what I was being told, was a bit fearful that the imagery would be that of a league, not the league office, of course, but a league that essentially wasn't willing to embrace a first openly gay player.
They didn't want to touch him because of sexual orientation or because he just wasn't good enough?
I'm saying that's what I was hearing, that there was a reluctance. What I'm saying to you is that I came on this show and I said that that's what I was hearing, and that's what you had. That's why you had people from the league office calling some teams.
But again,
right?
Because of sexual orientation or because he just wasn't good enough to
You're
make any roster?
asking that question.
I'm saying to you that there were people that I was being told that there were folks that were a bit reluctant for whatever reason. And I don't even want to say the sexual orientation.
Okay.
Just the news and the hype and everything that came with it. The distraction. In the event, the bottom line is, what else would there be a distraction for if it were not for him announcing that he was gay? So my point to you is that I never suspected that he was going to make the Dallas Cowboys. I never suspected that he was going to last a full season with the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, I believe that Jerry Jones being not, and it wasn't for hype on the part of Jerry Jones or the Dallas Cowboys in any stretch, even though usually it is in this particular instance. It was Jerry Jones, I personally believe, doing the league a favor by making sure somebody grabbed Michael Sam, at least on their practice squad, so it was a story that would go away. Now, that's not to say that the Dallas Cowboys was not going to give him a chance to perform, let him practice, see what he has, etc., because we all know they have issues in terms of sacking the quarterback. But at the same time, the bottom line is that there were not a whole bunch of suitors out there willing to open the floodgates to give Michael Sam a chance even to enter their practice squad. And this is the co-defensive player of the year in arguably the #1 football conference in America. Now, we can all gauge as to what the reasons behind that may have been. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know that you heard people mumbling in NFL circles about how they didn't want that kind of distraction. So in the end, what it comes down to is that Jerry Jones did the league a favor by taking Michael Sam on in the first place. Do I believe he can play in the NFL? Yes. Do you believe he can play in the NFL? Yes. Do we believe that he's somebody that should have fallen to the 7th round, the 249th pick, if I remember correctly? Absolutely, positively not. So one would surmise, or one would ask, why did you fall that low? And if you fell that low, could the same reason that you fell that low be the same reason why a lot of teams weren't willing to open their gates to welcome you in? Jerry Jones steps in. He does that for the NFL. But now that all of these days have passed and it's over with, here we are with Michael Sam once again not making an active NFL roster, and in this case, not even making the practice squad.
Look, I can't say you're wrong about your premise here, that Jerry Jones did this as a favor to the league, as a short-term favor to the league.
Sure.
That his time would run out quickly in Dallas. I can't say you're wrong. I just disagree with that premise.
Yeah.
And it's simply because of football and the desperation this team has at rushing the passer. And what week, this could be the most glaring week of all, where you don't cut Michael Sam. They sacked Eli Manning 0 times. They touched him in the game 1 time.
Yeah.
Come on now.
You're saying that they need him.
Oh, at some point?
Ladies and gentlemen, let me be very, very clear about something. I am in no way trying to imply that Jerry Jones took him and he wasn't going to have the opportunity to compete and show what he could do. I'm saying to you that if you don't make the practice squad, even though it's for St. Louis, and the fact that there was reluctance on the part of other teams to bring him on board before Jerry Jones grabbed him, clearly there were people that didn't think he was worth the trouble because of his football talent, meaning the distraction that he would. I don't want to say distraction because I don't think, I don't think he's. I don't think he's a distraction. All I'm trying to say is that the news. The attention. There were a lot of people that didn't want, a lot of teams that didn't want that because they believe his football prowess may not have warranted that. Jerry Jones was willing to give him that opportunity. He didn't cut the mustard. But in the end, what it comes down to is that the reluctance that took place to begin with was factually proven by the fact that he fell to the 7th round. He is the co-defensive player of the year in the SEC. Don't tell me that this brother can't play some football. This dude was in the preseason, had 6 tackles in one game, had about 2 or 3 sacks over the preseason. He showed an ability to rush the passer. Don't tell me that he can't make a practice squad. Yet there was reluctance in bringing him on board. So when Jerry Jones did it, and you learned, and we ultimately learned that Troy Vincent was one of the guys calling around the league, the fact is, in the end, you had a league that wants to ingratiate itself with the Michael Sams of the world and to show how forward-thinking they are.
How does this...
quick thought.
Okay, go, because I want to ask a question, because you brought up a point, and we need to address it.
But you brought up distraction. I have to give this young man full credit, because through his days in Dallas... When we're talking about media distraction, he did do an opening media session.
And that was it.
Which was unusual for a practice squad player, but this was Michael Sam, and we know why that was. Now, I think we're all totally fine with that. From that moment on, from all I've gathered, my information, he declined every interview from that point forward. He became just another practice squad player. So there was no big media distraction on his part in Dallas.
Right. But what y'all are missing is that when we say a distraction, that doesn't mean it's his fault. It could be other people wanting to bring that attention. It could be other teams surmising that this is going to happen and being a bit presumptuous in their thinking. Nobody's blaming Michael Sam.
No one said you were blaming Michael Sam, and he's not a distraction. But how does this hurt the team, Skip? Because you say you've done some research on this. How does this hurt the team by letting him go, or how did it benefit them by keeping him? I don't see maybe he just wasn't that good enough at the end of the day. Maybe he just wasn't that good enough at the end of the day.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's all I can figure out is that he didn't practice well enough. He didn't show them enough in practice to think that he should be activated when they have a glaring need at this position. Now, not to get too obscure here, but the Anthony Spencer has come back as a defensive end, and Okoye has just come back this week to practice as a defensive tackle, so they're getting a little healthier and a little deeper in the line. But I'm still saying this is just – now, remember, I was on record before the draft. I'd take him in the 3rd round. That's how much I liked him.
Yeah.
So just me. I'm going on my eye test from college football. I don't care about the distraction. I don't care about that. This is a league that, in the end, if you can play, they'll put up with it. They'll look. It's just
you're just saying if you can play.
If you can play, you can play.
But here's
man.
the problem. Here's the problem with what you're saying, Skip. I understand and I respect the fact that it's an eye test. I understand you and everybody else. We want to be sensitive to Michael Sam, but the reality is simple. He was considered too small. He was considered slow by NFL folks.
He was.
The combination of those two ingredients as a defensive lineman rushing a passer is not a good thing. There was a debate as to whether he could play the 4-3, whether he could play the 3-4. Because he was playing the 3-4, he'd have to be at the linebacker spot. He would be too slow for that. If he had to play the 4-3, he was too small to really rush the passer against starters in the NFL, all of this other stuff. Then you also had, because of those facts, people surmising within NFL circles, by the way. A lot of people come through the walls and the corridors of ESPN. They walk through the hallways, we talk. You go out to events, inside locker rooms, people are talking, which is what I've done this year. The fact of the matter is people were looking at him and saying the St. Louis Rams drafted him as a favor. They let him go. The Dallas Cowboys drafted him as a favor. You're not.
Is it fair to say they were loaded at his position?
Well, okay, you can say that
For
about
the
St.
Rams?
Louis. You can say that about St. Louis, definitely. Can't say that about Dallas.
I mean, that's the flip side.
But in the end, the common denominator is words like favor, words like NFL, being proactive. You're hearing about stuff. So regardless of what we think is right and wrong, it does not negate the fact that there are people within the NFL community that have the very feelings that I expressed. And that's the bottom line. I think he could play. I think he deserves shit. Don't tell me Michael Sam can't be in some practice squad. If we want to sit here and hide behind stuff and act act like what he announced himself to be as it pertains to his sexual orientation has absolutely nothing to do with it, y'all go right ahead and lie to yourself. I'm not doing that, because don't tell me that the co-defensive player of the year can't make a practice squad. I do not believe it. I do not want to hear it. I don't care how small he is. I don't care how slow he is. Don't tell me that a man with those accomplishments can't make a practice squad. And the only reason why this dude is not on a football team in the NFL is because of his football skills or lack thereof. That's nonsense.
On the show today is a man who spent 10 years in the NFL as a linebacker, described as the heart and soul of the Saints. Today, however, he's our NFL analyst. Jonathan Vilma, welcome back to First Take. Welcome back. This is my first time actually meeting you. So,
Yes.
But you've been here before.
Yes.
Back in the old days.
Back in the old days. And from my
Jets
understanding,
days.
you're a professional at this, right? You've done this before.
I'm trying. I'm trying to keep up with these two over here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to sit there and start off with it. We'll get into the New Orleans Saints later, but Skip and I have had many discussions about Bounty Gate and the Saints.
So I've
I had
heard.
to come on the air. I had to come on the air. I sat there and I told you I thought y'all were guilty as hell. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
And I sat up there and I said so as much. And then the ruling came down, the 3-member panel plus Paul Tagliabue, former commissioner. I had to come on this air and apologize on camera. First time I'm seeing you, my man. Mean it. Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
I was wrong and I apologize. I just
Thanks
want to be
a
clear.
million.
I did have you back.
He did. I did
He
not.
just wants to remind you.
I did not. He had y'all back all the way.
Yeah.
I thought y'all were guilty as hell.
All right.
But I was wrong.
I appreciate it.
All right.
I appreciate
Big
it,
sir.
Thank you, Vilma,
go.
for being here. We appreciate it. So now that we're going to put your analyst hat on, okay?
All right, here we go.
We need to say you got it on. Let's talk about
Got it.
New England, those Patriots, shall we? Boston Globe is reporting that defensive end Chandler Jones is not going to play because of hip surgery. He has a hip surgery, and I didn't know that. He barely missed a snap in Thursday's game, and so from all of our accounts, he's been the most consistent pass rusher. We have some stats on him: 4.5 sacks, 21 total sacks, as well as a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. And we're asking you to rate the damage of this. So on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yes.
let's talk about the Patriots and winning the AFC. How much faith do you...
Want me to go first?
Well, are you going to go first?
I could, because since I'm the true
You want to?
Patriot defender. See,
Okay.
he's fraudulent Patriot defender.
Well, and are you neutral with the Patriots?
I'm neutral, but I'm interested to hear what Skip is going to say.
And then I want you to make sure that you hold them accountable.
I definitely will.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, Skip, give us
Okay.
how much faith do you have in
It's
them?
faith.
Yeah.
So this is for real.
Okay.
I have fallen to a 6. Now, you guys know, as
A
long
6
as...
from where, Skip?
From 10.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, it's scale. It's
Just
not 1 to
checking, man.
100. If it's 1 to 100, I'm really in trouble at a 6. But as long as they have number 12 behind center, I will never, ever fall lower than a 6 in faith in this football team. But once again, in the wake of losing Gerard Mayo and Hilliard, it's just Chandler Jones is a huge loss for this football team.
Sure.
Because he is their most gifted pass rusher. He had 11.5 sacks last year. And the problem is they are about to undergo a murderer's row of the toughest closing stretch in all of pro football, the most difficult remaining schedule. They should be able to beat the Bears this Sunday in Foxborough. But following that game, as you guys probably know by now, it goes Denver, at Indy, Lions, at Green Bay, at San Diego. They do get to close against the AFC least. You, being a former Jet, would appreciate that. Miami, then at Jets, then Buffalo.
Yeah.
But my point is there any way they can go 3-2 in this stretch? Because all that matters to me is the postseason. I have them winning the AFC. They lost at Denver in the AFC Championship game a year ago, 26-16. It's all about home field advantage. So could they go 3-2? Could they close out 12-4? Would that give them home field over Denver? The Denver I saw on Sunday night looked like the best team in the AFC right now. Can Denver close out at 13-3 as they always seem to? If they do, my Patriots are in big postseason trouble, and so is my pick.
All right, he's at a 6, Jonathan.
I'm at a 6 as well, but I never started with a 10.
Okay.
I thought that Denver was going to win the AFC.
Yeah.
I think that their all-season acquisitions are finally starting to step up. I think that Von Miller is starting to get healthy. I see that you have your 1 and sack 2 leaders in the NFL right now, DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, and this is what they brought DeMarcus Ware in for. I think that the Patriots are going to win the AFC East. I think that's fair to say Buffalo was a close second. Everyone's kind of looking at Miami and saying, well, are they going to do something? I don't agree. I think they're too inconsistent.
Yep.
I think that they will win the East. I think they will host a divisional game. They might get a bye just because you look at who scares you right now in the AFC aside from Denver, aside from the Colts.
Yep.
San Diego, you can't make heads or tails of them just yet until they face some better competition. So they have a legitimate shot at getting a first-round bye. They have a legitimate shot of hosting a divisional game. And then now it comes down to the Denver Broncos. And what are they going to do? Are they going to be at Denver again, or are they going to face them in the championship game at home?
And you suspect at Denver?
I suspect at Denver, yes.
And you were never at a 10, so it doesn't really matter. You're just a 6.
I'm a 6. I was neutral.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at them. I'm saying they're a good team. Whenever they're challenged, they step up to the challenge. Look what they did to Cincy. They had a challenge against Buffalo. They thought people thought Buffalo was going to come in and win that game. They tore them apart. Yeah. So I'm looking at a team that they find ways to win. They're going to get to the game. I don't think they're going to win it.
How much did you fear Tom Brady when you played for the Jets?
Man, Tom Brady, I feared him as much as I feared Peyton Manning, as much as I feared Drew Brees in training camp.
Right.
These guys are smart. They're athletic as far as quarterback ability. Athletic. They're laser accurate. And I get it because he's not in his prime and everyone is saying he's fallen off. But this guy is still legitimate and can still go out there, make all the throws, make the plays he needs to make. And then he's not doing it with a ton of talents. He doesn't have a Demaryius Thomas out there. Give him a 4-yard slant, turn it to 80 yards for a touchdown. He's able to do it with the guys he has.
Yeah.
Silly me. I don't see any slippage from Tom Brady. I think that's a misnomer. I think everybody's a bit overblown with it simply because, listen, when he's been protected, he looks like Tom Brady. When he doesn't get protected, he doesn't. I mean, just ask the New York Giants. He tends to tap dance like the late, great Gregory Hines, God rest his soul. This is what Tom Brady and all of them do. You know the rules. You get to a quarterback, you can make them tap dance. You can make anybody look normal if you don't protect them. What happens? New England lets go of Logan Mankins before the season begins. That's a devastating loss. There's no question. But we're talking about Mr. Jones here with 4.5 sacks. Think about this. One of the things that got lost in the shuffle, New England has the #1 passing defense in the NFL right now in terms of yards allowed. Now, obviously, the ability to get to the quarterback is going to help you in that regard. I'm trying to look at how many sacks they got. I think they got 18 on the season. Not too bad, not too shabby, but not great either. Right. Still less than 3 a game. So I'm looking at it from the perspective, okay, they're managing to sit there and limit teams' passing games. Now, Mayo being out definitely hurts. He's their leading tackler. I do have some concerns, and that's why I'd say I'd dip it from a 9 or a 10 to a 7. But I'm not going the 6 because you can't convince me that if you got the #1 defense that you can't figure out a way to overcome the loss of Chandler Jones. I just don't believe it. I'm not getting sold on that. The combination of Jones and Mayo being gone definitely can hurt you. But I remember with Wilford gone. I remember, with Wilford gone and Mayo gone last year. They still got to the AFC Championship game. What did you do now? You went from Aqib Talib to Darrelle Revis. Your secondary with McCourty and those boys, they're there. So I'm looking at it from the perspective, can Bill Belichick figure out a way to get to the quarterback in the absence of Chandler Jones? I think so. Now, if he lost Darrelle Revis, I might feel differently.
But I'll say this.
Go ahead.
They had the #1 pass defense, I don't think in spite of Chandler Jones. It was because of Chandler Jones. You had him and Ninkovich that were able to rush the passer.
So you're saying you believe that's why they had the #1 passing defense?
I think that their defensive scheme and their concept was based on 2 guys that could get legitimate pressure on the quarterback without having to generate pressure, without having to bring that 5th man, 6th man. So now are we going to say, okay, we're going to now do fire zones. We're going to take that 5th guy. We're going to blitz him now. Put the secondary in awkward situations where, hey, if it hits, great, you got a sack. If it doesn't hit, there's holes in the zone. Are you going to play more man? We all know about Revis and his ability, and he does a great job. Look what he did to A.J. Green. But I'm saying something has to change. Is it for the better or for the worse now that Chandler Jones is out?
But here's where I'm surprised at what you're saying.
Yep.
You've got Ryan, you've got Revis.
Yes.
You've got McCourty.
Yes.
Okay? And I'm looking at these guys, and I'm saying to myself, this is Bill Belichick coaching here. You trying to tell me that Bill Belichick can't figure out a way?
Yeah.
If you
he can.
Now, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
If you're mediocre and then you lose Jones and Mayo, I get it. But if you're the #1 defense in terms of yards allowed in the pass, I'm looking at you and I'm saying, I can't overcome this with those brothers in the secondary. I can't find a way to apply pressure and utilize those guys.
He can, but remember, we started this conversation by saying these injuries hurt them to win the AFC.
Got it.
To get to the Super Bowl.
Got it.
So your number one pass defense, who is your opponent out there that you fear?
Peyton Manning.
Denver Broncos.
So you don't think the loss of Ridley in the run game? Now you're putting more and more pressure on a Tom Brady who, by all accounts, has average at best weapons.
Well, to me, as I'm watching Gronkowski continue to get better, as I'm watching New England occasionally use a two tight end formation, I'm saying that falls right in the alley of Tom Brady. Now, obviously, I can't rely on Danny Amendola. The man is just he's an injury waiting to happen. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, we don't know if he's going to last, okay?
Actually made a couple of plays.
He made a couple of plays. Well, it was, he always makes a couple of plays before November and December. I mean, Thanksgiving hasn't arrived yet. I'm just waiting. All I'm saying to you, we know he can play, but we prognosticate and make predictions based on, okay, who are you from a health standpoint? Obviously, what if Denver happened? What if Demaryius Thomas went down? What if Demaryius and Wes Welker went down? I mean, would Peyton Manning be the same? We don't know.
But they haven't gone down.
I know they haven't gone down. So I'm just looking at it, and I'm just of the mindset that having Revis back there, having your secondary intact, I feel Bill Belichick can figure out a way to work around this. That's just my thing. But I do get your point because, again, if I got to bring the house, then that leaves them more susceptible.
Okay, so on the record, through Murder's Row, can they go 3-2 against that stretch?
I do believe that.
Okay, then I'm good.
Not only
I believe that too.
Not only that, Skip, even though they beat Denver last year, I think they can beat Denver again despite it because they'll be in Foxborough.
Our Ed Warder is reporting that defensive lineman Alan Branch may be signed by the Patriots. Let's move on to another topic.
By the way, he's trying to jinx my Patriots.
I know. The Jets are now 1-6 after falling to the Patriots last Thursday or before their bye. The team recently added Percy Harvin to their receiving corps, a much-needed weapon for one young Geno Smith. Smith, on the season, has a completion percentage of 57% and a QBR of 32%. In 2 years with the Jets, Geno is only 9-14 while throwing 28 interceptions. We're talking about the future, the Jets' future, that is. Do you think Geno Smith is the answer? I will ask you, our NFL analyst.
I personally don't think Geno Smith is the answer.
Wow.
I see a lot of the inconsistencies that he showed his senior year at West Virginia.
Okay.
Now, I'm not the GM and I'm not the head coach. I'm looking at Geno and I'm saying, okay, let's first hope he understands what's going on right now. What's going on is they just signed Jeremy Curley. They just brought in Percy Harvin. They have a solid run game. So they're saying we have all the pieces in place. Their defense is always top tier, year in and year out. So you have a GM, you have an organization that's saying, hey guys, we have everything we need around this quarterback. Is the quarterback the reason we can't win games? And I think Geno needs to understand that this is now an audition for the last part of the season because the season is over. We understand that. They're not going to the playoffs. It's a wash. It's about who do they have and who do they keep for next year. Is Rex Ryan going to be there? I don't think he's going to be there. Not at a 1-6 start, unless you rip off 9 wins and go 10-6. It's not happening. So you're going to have a new coach, maybe a new GM. You have now talent, so to speak, around you, and they're going to look right at the quarterback position and say, can we win the AFC with this guy, yes or no? And I think Geno needs to understand that he's in a very peculiar position right now because what I see, what a lot of people see is the same inconsistencies that he had coming into the NFL. It hasn't changed. One good game, a couple bad games. You just don't get it.
No matter how much help
he
gets, that's him. One good game, a couple.
I hope that's not him. I'm saying that's what I've seen. I'm completely unbiased. I have no intentions, good or bad, for Geno Smith. I'm just watching the film. What I see on film, some games are good, some games are not.
Strong stuff.
I know that other people see it as well.
I respect it. I respect where you're coming from, but I respectfully disagree from this perspective. I don't think that you're attaching the brunt of the responsibility where it belongs.
Okay.
John Idzik, to me, deserves a boatload of responsibility for what has happened. Rex Ryan's going to probably lose his job. He's going to probably lose his job, Skip, because they got the 26th ranked defense right now. That's unacceptable. They rank 16th.
Corners
they have 16. They rank 16th against the pass. I'm sitting there. When you look at how depleted they've been, you can't get opposing offenses off the field. You're usually operating at a deficit because your definition of a number one starter at receiver was Eric Decker. Still an APB out for him, by the way. Couldn't find him in the Super Bowl. We knew he was at the Super Bowl because he was interviewed before the Super Bowl and did a quote after the Super Bowl. Couldn't find his behind for 60 minutes, with the exception of one reception for 6 yards, but don't get me started. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that because Eric Decker was your number one option, you had a decent running game with Ivory and Johnson, but in the end, devoid of a real passing game, you've limited Geno. I've been on Geno just like Skip. Skip more so than me because Skip saw it. I give him a lot of credit. He was talking about him during West Virginia when they won their first 5 or 6 games for that season. Skip was like, hold your horses. I'm telling you, he ain't what you think he is. This is what he was saying. So I give Skip credit for that. But at the same time, when you're talking about the Mark Sanchez of the world and other things, other people that they've had, I'm looking at his talent, his ability to make certain throws, his athleticism, his mobility, and I'm like, give the brother some weapons. Now that you got Harvin with Decker, still Curly there, Cumberland there, and the running game, offensive line with the Brickashaw and Mango to those boys to see what they do. Now I'm interested in seeing Geno because this is the first time I think he's had a legitimate shot to really show what his capabilities are. I understand as a linebacker, you can just read and see what he's doing, and I get that. So I'm in no position to impugn anything that you're saying. I'm simply saying I see a lot of scrubs. I don't give a damn what sport it is. I know scrubs. I got scrub radar written all over me. If you are a scrub, I can spot that.
You got it installed in your car, right? Scrub radar?
Something like that. Something like that. Let's not get me in trouble. You understand? Let's just say, I got to avoid the speeding tickets. Let's leave it at that. Point is, in the end, I'm just looking at Geno, and I'm like, look, I haven't been that impressed either. But I got to give the brother a chance because I don't think Idzik has.
Okay. Tell me, why was Mark Sanchez run out of New York? Because they went to 2 AFC championships.
I will tell you why.
With him.
Come on now. That's a trick question on your part.
It's not a trick question.
You know exactly.
It's not a trick question.
You play with the Jets, so you know,
it's not
Jonathan.
A trick question.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. It's New York. It's the bubble.
Right.
And Mark Sanchez didn't play bad at all the first 2 years.
Correct.
But when it went bad, it really went bad. And then New York's one of those places when you fall down. I've fallen and I can't get up. Remember that old?
No one's there to help you.
Nobody's trying to help you.
That's
Nobody's
right.
trying to help you get up. You better get up on your own. And Mark Sanchez didn't have the intestinal fortitude to pull that off. That's what happened to me.
We got to get Skip in here. Bayless.
You know how I feel about this. And I'm right there with Jonathan, and I was in your corner pre-draft, as Mr. Smith has pointed out.
Yeah.
I do not believe Geno will ever be the future of the New York Jets. I believe he is what he isn't, and we have seen that. And I was very disappointed in his play as they lost 6 of their last 8 games his last year at West Virginia. Remember, he was the Heisman frontrunner for those first 5. So his QBR now ranks 33rd out of 35 qualified quarterbacks. 33rd out of 35. And he is coming off what I thought was his best game in pro football was the New England game. Stephen A., I think, didn't you agree? He played really well.
Yeah.
QBR wasn't that high, 59.8, but 20 and 34 for 226, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Ran 7 times for 37 yards. He kept them in the game. He didn't do anything to blow the game the way he did as a rookie at Foxborough when he threw 3 picks in the 4th quarter. I just don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's consistently accurate enough, and I'm not sure he has the kind of leadership, face of the franchise intangibles that you bank on long-term in New York City. I just think he will slowly but surely continue to be exposed as not that guy.
All right.
Agreed. I agree. It's what I've been saying. I look at the Jets, and they always kind of build their team around the same thing. Good defense, a strong running game.
Yep.
They have a little bit of talent at the skill positions. They need someone, just don't mess it up. That's what they need. They need a quarterback, just don't mess it up.
Our next guest is a former NFL linebacker and standout All-American at Oklahoma, as you saw. He is also a veteran in Hollywood, so to speak, acting in films such as The Longest Yard, 3 Kings, and his 30 for 30 documentary, Bryant and the Boz, will be airing next Tuesday. We are very honored to have you here at the desk. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you.
All right.
Once upon a time, Kerry, I interviewed this man in 1985 at the University of Oklahoma.
How'd that go?
When he was the boss.
When he was the boss. How'd that go?
Loved it.
How'd that go? You remember this man?
I remember him well. I don't remember the interview. I'm probably sure I said some things I probably shouldn't have said. Should have been more
that's
political,
why I wrote
correct?
Let's talk about this 30 for 30. What can we expect?
I think you're going to be surprised that, I think there's a lot of misconception of what people think they know who the Boz is. I didn't know who the Boz was because it was a constant transformation. The interesting thing for me, because I just saw it yesterday, was I got a chance to see who Bryant used to be, and I lost that. the innocence and the humility of just a young man who was passionate about playing football and fulfilling a dream. Somewhere along the lines, the Boz took over. The success, the train of Oklahoma football and the notoriety and the media, it left the station, and I was the conductor. And, I ended up taking us into a crash, and it was a long, hard journey to watch it, but it was something that I'm glad that I did, because I had to confront some of the things in my past that I had put in the attic, and I put them in the attic for a reason. If I was proud of them, I'd have put them on a mantle, but I wanted them in the attic because I didn't want to deal with it, but that was the way I was raised.
When you say you put them in the attic, Brian, is it a situation where once you had to confront that, you sort of felt like there were people that you needed to reach out to? Did you ever reach a point where you felt like there was apologies that needed to be made, a level of contrition that needed to be shown, or anything like that where you think you hurt somebody more than even you may have hurt yourself?
Well, I think I needed to go back to the beginning. I need to understand, and through the process, I had to really ask, cloudy then, clear now. Once I got to the end, I understood what was going on. I was asking myself 3 questions. I had to answer the 3 questions. Where am I from? What made me why I am and who I am? And that really comes from my relationship with my father. And that's something that I'm trying to work with my family. Transparency, communication, honesty is the key ingredient to having a great family life. We didn't have any of those things. Love was never a word. It was never a word that was ever mentioned. Hugging. I appreciate you. Great job. I love you for just who you are. None of that was part of my growing up. So I needed to deal with that with my father. Unfortunately, that was like talking to the brick wall. And then he passed away in 2009 with a lot of unresolved issues. And that started this therapy campaign. A movie came into my presence that I wasn't really looking to do that changed my life. It was Revelation Road. Agent called me and said, I got a great movie for you. You need to read it. I said, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do movies anymore. And he said, just read the script. I think you're going to like it. But I got to warn you, it's a Christian movie. Great. No one's going to watch this thing. Read the script, got through about 15 pages of it, called him back and said, hey, look, this isn't the movie. This is not a Christian movie. He goes, no, read that. I read it, and that was the first time I ever looked at words on a page and then looked in the mirror and said, I'm lost, and I need to find out where I'm at. Second question, where am I at? So I had to resolve those questions before I could finally come to the conclusion of the third question. Where am I going, and how am I going to get there?
So, Brian, you look back at, and I want our younger viewers to appreciate the fact, you were as famous and infamous a character who ever came down the pike during one college football season. For those who are too young to remember, you captivated national headlines and media attention, pre-social media, obviously, in ways that I can't remember anybody else quite captivating the college football community. Yet, to me, I think you're saying the Boz was a fraud. And for those who don't remember, you failed quickly as a very high draft choice in pro football. Is that accurate, that you think that guy was a fraud?
I think you have to define who the Boz was. There's two kind of versions of the Boz. When I put my helmet on and I went on the field and I did my business, that was the Boz. That was Boz. You know, Brian Bosworth.
That was Brian.
No, Brian was the student and the guy that was working out, practicing and that whole thing. Put the helmet on, I became Boz. The media put the Boz on it, and then that became a character. That character then had to create different things to, be part of an entertainment facilitation deal. That was where I got lost. Felt like I always had to be on.
Okay, you did test positive for steroids before the bowl game. Did that have anything to do with the fraudulent Boz? Do you feel like you created, through steroids, a better player than you should have been? No,
because I think the steroid thing got way out of proportion here, because I didn't take steroids in high school. Didn't take them when I first got to...
Just take your earpiece off.
Yeah, just say no. We're here.
We're good.
Didn't take them in high school. Didn't take them in college until I got hurt, which was after the Penn State game. Frustrated that the injury wasn't happening. Utilized the advice of some of the ex-players that had played there. because we've all seen, you can go to the gym and you can get a shoebox full of stuff. Yeah. And I was always very fearful of that. It's like, I'm not going to get that. I don't know where he comes from, and I don't want a giant forehead, and I don't want muscles where I don't need muscles. But I listened to what everybody else was doing. And if you remember back in those days, there was no rules about steroids. Switzer came to us at the beginning of that season during our spring, just after spring was over. And he had a team meeting. He said, I don't care who's on them. I don't want to know anything, but I'm going to tell you right now, they've implemented a rule. Everybody that's on them, get off. We're going to test everybody at the beginning of the season. They tested everybody at the end of the season, and I listened to everything Coach Switzer said, probably too much so, and absorbed all of it. So whatever he said, I did. Sometimes a little bit too far, but I did it. He tested us at the beginning of the season. We all passed. I wasn't concerned about it because I'd gotten off of him. Orange Bowl comes up. I'm sick. I'm in the infirmary. 3 days in there, food poisoning from going out to L.A. They came in and they demanded, a sample, and I gave them the best that I could, which was about that much of a concentrated level. And long story short, they tagged me for something. It actually wasn't what the doctor had given me.
Oh, okay.
Then we did a retest. He called me. Switzer called me right away. He said, I thought I told you to get off. I did get off. Well, if you're saying you got off, then I'm going to have you retested. He retested me in December, and I tested clean. And I said, so right there, are we going to fight? He goes, no, we're not going to fight. It's out of my hands. We're not playing for the national championship, and don't worry about it. But as a 20-year-old kid, it was a personal thing to me. I felt betrayed, and I picked the wrong stage to make my statement.
You wore the T-shirt, national,
I wore the T-shirt.
National Communists Against
yes,
Athletes.
Yes, you did, and that caused a lot of trouble. Let me go back to the pro career just for a quick second, because before that Monday night game against the Oakland Raiders and Mr. Bo Jackson, you were talking about how you were personally going to sit there and you didn't use the word neutralize, but I'm using that. Obviously, the big play, Bo Jackson runs right over you. He rushed for 221 yards that game, if I remember correctly.
That was his birthday.
Yeah. I mean, it was a big time game for him. Wasn't so much of a big time game for you or the team because y'all lost. I think it was like 37-14 that night. I want to ask that, in light of the short NFL career that you have, do you ever sit back and contemplate what the Boz would have been if you could have had a more successful NFL career? Because based on what I'm hearing from you, a successful NFL career might have been the worst thing for you as opposed to the best thing, based on what you said that, you've gone through as you've reflected on your life.
It's a double-edged sword. I was too full of pride, too full of myself, and so concerned about letting everybody down. I didn't want to let the Seattle Seahawks down. I didn't want to let the town of Seattle down. I didn't want to let my teammates down. I didn't want to let the fans down. And I was also going back to the way I was raised. If you're hurt, you play. And I remember my father, when I was a little kid playing in a playoff game, and he was the coach, and I was running off the field, I'm crying. Get back out there. You ain't coming out. I don't care. We're going to win this game, and if you ain't hurt, you ain't playing. So that's my mental capacity. So I played consciously hurt. Had I not been full of myself, I should have just said, look, guys, I'm not playing this year. I'm going to get a surgery, and I'm going to get it fixed because I want to win a championship here, and I want a career. So hindsight, I wish I'd done that. In retrospect, on the same question, had I done that, there's great probability that I would have all kinds of medical issues, concussions, and I can only imagine what Junior went through. I played at a very high level. I knew at some point in time, I had played with 1 RPM, and that was in the red, full blast all the time. I tried to destroy everybody that I hit. I didn't know how to just throttle it down and say, I can just make a tackle and bring him down. I had to hit him, punish him, drive him, plan him, push him, and then get up. I couldn't do it any other way. And I don't know why that was. And that was probably because of the anger that was inside me, because I felt like I was always proving something to my father. How do I make you happy? Is this enough? Are you happy now? And I could never get to that point.
So bring it full circle to today as you watch college football. Let's take the guy who's in the biggest spotlight right now, Jameis Winston. What advice would you give to Jameis right now?
Find humility. Find humility. You got a God gift. You're the center target. Work on your character. Your game is good. but let's work on your character. Let's start planting positive seeds for the young players that are watching you so that they want to be like you and emulate the great things that you do and stop making stupid mistakes. You got a moral compass in your heart. Everybody does. Every human does. And you know right from wrong. When you make a decision, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I got away with it. So the thrill of that is enticing. That's sin. He needs to figure out a way to correct his moral compass. And for me, and I don't like to get into this, but I'm going to do it anyway, the only way that you can correct your moral compass is Jesus is the one who can create and fix your navigational system. And he needs to find that if he didn't have it.
Who is Brian Bosworth now, as we let you go?
I'm a man at peace and love my place where I'm at right now. I've got a great relationship working on with my father, with my son. My daughter's a freshman at Oklahoma, so I'm enjoying being a father. Enjoy my life with my wife. Making another movie right now called Do You Believe? We're right in the middle of that right now, so it's another faith-based movie. I'm just blessed being where I'm at. I got a chance to start over, and this is my second chance, and I'm really enjoying it.
The Royals entered the World Series red hot, sweeping every opponent in their way and winning 8 straight games this postseason. After 5 days off, they looked like a different team and lost Game 1 last night to the Giants, 7-1. James Shields was anything but Big Game James, giving away 3 runs in the first inning alone. And we're putting the Royals on the hook. Will they win Game 2 tonight? Stephen A.
I don't think so. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Royals ended up getting swept. I don't think it will happen.
So I thought you're going for a sweep already.
I don't think it will happen. I think I'll give them one. But the San Francisco Giants are no joke. Bumgarner is just a real deal. 21 scoreless innings in the World Series before giving up that home run in the 7th inning, I believe. This dude was absolutely sensational. Skip, I saw one moment where he threw a 93-mile-per-hour fastball. His next pitch was a curveball at 70 miles per hour. Yeah. I mean, this dude was he was just hitting his spots. He was going high and in on right-handed hitters, low or high and away on lefties. He was absolutely sensational. It was just that simple. They put up a 3 spot in the first inning. And then I watched Bochy, which is one of the reasons, once again, why he's such an exceptional manager. You get a cushion, you get a lead. What do? You get Ishikawa out of there, and you bring in. I think it was Juan Perez. Why? For defensive purposes. Yep. This guy is constantly thinking ahead, and I think Big Game James has been anything but. We know his ERA was over 7 in postseason action. Hasn't been himself. Hasn't been impressive at all. Been anything but Big Game James. But I thought he was hurt also by the umpire because he was throwing balls right on the outside, right on the edge of the plate. Got squeezed. Wasn't getting a call. So as a result, he came in a little bit more, and it was right over the plate. And San Francisco was going to expose that all night long. They're just experienced. You got Sandoval with a 24-game. You're getting on base in 24 consecutive postseason games. You look at Bumgarner. He's 3-0 in the World Series, and in the postseason, a 32 2/3 innings scoreless streak up until the 7th inning last night. When you look at them, I'm just saying to myself, they're just a superior team. They're experienced. They've been here before. They know what they're doing. And even though I'm suspect on PV because his ERA is like over 7, and I'm not that impressed with him, he is gutsy. He does show up, and he keeps you in the game. And to me, that's all Bochy and Posey and this crew needs. They've got to win tonight. If the Kansas City Royals do not win Game 2 tonight, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to pick them to win tonight's game, Skip, just for the Kansas City, just for the purposes of them not getting swept. Because if they lose tonight, they will get swept.
Your first inclination was they're going to lose.
I just think I know they're going to lose this series. I know San Francisco's the better team. It's just a matter whether it's.
Well, you didn't know. Your deep source in California.
Jeff Brown.
My man Jeff Brown. That's my resident baseball guru. Or it could be Pop.
He followed me on Twitter the other day after you said that.
The minute I said that, he said he was going to start following you two just to highlight for y'all how right I am.
Okay.
But it's because of his experties.
It's because of
Northern
or Southern California.
It's Southern California. He lives about 30 minutes outside of L.A.
Okay. Well, then what's he know about the Giants?
Well, he's a native New Yorker, and he's a baseball aficionado, loves his baseball. Nobody knows more than my pops. So the combination of my pops and Jeff, I'm good. Yeah. So I'm going to give love to Jeff Brown, but Papa Smith, Ashley, Basil, Smith, my pops. He knows his baseball, too.
So, full circle, you are picking the Royals tonight.
Back to the question.
I'm going to roll. I'm going to roll with the Royals tonight only because I don't want to disrespect them by assuming they're going to get swept. But they are losing this series. They are not winning.
If they lose tonight, they are in grave danger.
They
of getting
lose tonight,
swept.
they're getting swept.
Okay. So the big question here is, did the bubble get burst last night?
Okay.
Yes. Or maybe the better question is, did the dam burst? And all those emotion-packed momentum feelings that were built through the first 8 games of the playoffs, did they get washed away in one foul night?
I see.
7-1. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say this team bounces back and wins impressively tonight. I'm not the biggest PV fan. I think he is beatable. I think he's gettable, especially for this team in this park at home. They're going to have to pick themselves up off the map because I don't think they saw that coming.
Yep.
They didn't see Hunter Pence in the first inning, who was 0 for 11 against Big Game James, who had not hit a home run over the last 50 days, going deep to suddenly make it 3-1, and it felt like, 3-0, and it felt like 30-0 to me with Madison Bumgarner on the mound. It was one of those nights, Stephen A., if you watch closely, in which I thought the Royals hit a lot of hard balls off Bumgarner.
Yeah.
You know, they hit a lot of shots that got caught. You know how weird baseball is. Some nights, you hit them where they are, and people catch it. And you say, God, we hung in. We had so many good at-bats, and nothing happened. So what happened in the third? They get second and third and nobody out, and you can't cash one time? Well, that's a problem. So I think they bounce back. Now, they got a 23-year-old on the mound tonight, and this is effectively his first year in the big leagues, Ventura.
Right. And remember what happened when he came in the postseason?
But he got thrown in relief for the first time in, I assume, his career. I don't know if he pitched in relief in the minors or not. But he got lit up, but then they came back, and you remember they beat John Lester. They came back from 7-3 down.
Sensational.
I don't know how they did that. That made their whole year. But I'm going to say that the kid pitches very well tonight. He will pitch with poise, and he will pitch well enough for them to win by 3 or 4 runs. And you'll say tomorrow, it's a series.
Okay.
I hope you're right, because I root for series. I can't stand blowouts, but San Francisco is so seasoned, so experienced, and if the games are tight, even though their bullpen with Herrera, with Wilson, with Holland is lethal, and we understand that, not to mention this kid Finnegan as well, I look at San Francisco and just the manner in which Bochy uses his bullpen. I mean, he just throws a whole bunch of stuff at you, and I just like what I see from these guys. I just do.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The new college football playoff.
The Seminoles have completed the perfect season.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
A band member of Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea, took to Twitter on Tuesday to issue a scathing critique, if you will, of a recent ESPN article by Henry Abbott that connected Kobe Bryant to the Lakers' downfall. Here is the tweet. He goes, Henry Abbott, your ESPN Kobe article is absolute garbage and a blatant, irresponsible attack. Phil Jackson, Kobe's coach for more than a decade, retweeted that exact tweet and said, go get him, Flea. That's simple. Go get him, Flea. Stephen A., what is Phil Jackson trying to do or say with that tweet?
Well, I think he's being supportive of Kobe Bryant because I think he understands that Kobe's going through a lot right now in the twilight of his career, considering all that Kobe has accomplished and all that Kobe has done, that he deserves better than that. He deserves better than people labeling him the 40th best player in the NBA. He deserves better than people anonymously saying he's done and he can't get the job done and all of this other stuff. And Phil Jackson understands that 5 of those 11 titles that he had came in large part due to the contribution that Kobe Bryant has made. I found it, however, somewhat comical that Phil felt the need to point that out and to address it in that manner. Please understand before I say what I need to say that I'm a lifelong New York Knicks fan. I love the fact that Phil Jackson is the president of basketball operations for the New York Knicks. This man's a brilliant basketball mind. As far as I'm concerned, he's the resident E.F. Hutton of the NBA. When he speaks, we all should listen. Nothing but profound respect for this man. But even though I'm not one who talks to Phil per se, other than ask a question, and because it's not like he's gonna sit down one-on-one with me. One of the reasons that he may be a bit hesitant to do so is because I was never shy in the past about pointing out the last season, A Team in Search of Its Soul.
His book. That
was the book written by Phil Jackson in the aftermath of the 2003-2004 season when he had departed as coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And I was on the record saying that I had a problem with the fact that this coach, who was known for, keeping copious notes and having his diaries and, saying what he needed to, what he wanted to say in the form of a book, I thought that it was a violation of trust that he had written this book and had talked about Kobe Bryant in the way that he talked about Kobe Bryant. I think one quote in there is where Phil was saying, according to excerpts of the book, he went to Mitch Kupchak, said, I won't coach this team next year if he is still here. He won't listen to anyone. I've had it with this kid. Talking about how he wanted Kobe Bryant traded. Talking about how there was, he tried to trade Kobe Bryant in 1999-2000 season for Jason Kidd and Sean Marion. Ultimately pointing out some of the things about Kobe Bryant being a headache, etc. Well, one could argue that the article by Henry Abbott, one could argue that some of the things that have been said in a less than flattering manner about Kobe Bryant over the years is due in large part to revelations given to us by Phil Jackson. Because we understand that Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal butted heads, and Shaquille O'Neal was never shy about how he felt about Kobe Bryant at one time, and vice versa with Kobe Bryant feeling that way about him. But that's not enough to attach a strong level of credence and credibility to arguments against Kobe Bryant if it wasn't substantiated by one Phil Jackson. So in the end, to see him give this quote, I get it. He's qualified. Who am I to question the great Phil Jackson? The only issue that I have ever had with this man in his illustrious career as a coach in Chicago and in L.A., profound respect for him to this day. Love the fact that he's a member of the New York Knicks. But I never felt it was right for him or any other coach to coach a team filled with players, ask for their trust, garner their trust, then turn around and write a book about it. I've always had an issue with that, and I always will.
So, E.F. Hutton wrote in his book, Kobe is, quote unquote, uncoachable.
At that time, yes.
E.F. Hutton said that.
He did say
Were
that.
you listening?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So that's on the record. It's for posterity and print in that book, right?
Let's remind the world that he wrote it, retired,
and came back
and
coached.
And coached the
uncoachable.
And got 2 more rings.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we remember that.
All right.
Go ahead.
I covered Phil Jackson in my days as the columnist for the Chicago Tribune. Had a couple sessions with him, got to know him a little bit, loved him, but was a little wary of his ways and means that he motivated his team with. The Zen master could be the spin master when it suited his purposes. And apparently, when he returned to the Lakers, he was able to convince one Kobe Bryant, I was just trying to sell some books. He obviously got back in Kobe's good graces, right? Because they won together, correct? I mean, Kobe could have been so alienated that he could have refused to play for Phil Jackson. Because that's scathing right there, right? That was some strong stuff, and he was so pro-Shaq at that time in the book. He said that the coaching Shaq was an experience I will cherish forever. So clearly, he sided with Shaq in these, can I call it a spat between Kobe and Shaq? Is that fair? It was an ongoing spat over, it was kind of childish to me, but it's like this town ain't big enough for the both of them, and one had to go, and Shaq went, and it was clear Phil did not support that decision, that he wanted Kobe gone, and he wanted to keep Shaq. So somehow it came full circle to where he successfully was able to coach Kobe. And I'm not, like this tweet we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's possible that Phil is merely supporting his friend Flea in this tweet. Like, go get him, Flea. Like, go Flea. That doesn't necessarily mean he's supporting.
How is that him not supporting Kobe?
Well, we don't know.
Supporting Kobe.
But
he could be laughing, saying, "Go Flea, go!" Like go get him, because it's funny to Phil.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that Phil is supporting Kobe Bryant because I think that they rekindled their relationship. I think a lot of conversations took place, and I think in some respects both saw the error of their ways, because it's not like Phil was lying about Kobe. Kobe can be difficult, and Kobe knows that. But at the same time, one of the things you can never say about Kobe is that he's not trustworthy when it comes to keeping things in-house. He certainly never spoke against Phil. Yep. Kobe Bryant has always, and listen to Kobe Bryant, he always said this, I have nothing but respect for Phil Jackson, the coach. You know what I'm saying? He didn't say anything about the man or anything. I don't know how he feels about Phil Jackson as a man, as whatever. But I know that he, in all the years that I've known Kobe, I know two things. He has always respected Phil Jackson. He has never spoken against Phil Jackson, the coach. And when it comes to Shaquille O'Neal, he, until recently, until a few years ago, he has never liked Shaquille O'Neal. From the time that Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe has never liked Shaquille O'Neal. From the time Shaquille O'Neal tried to slap him at Loyola Marymount, I think, or Pepperdine, wherever it was, you know, when Kobe first was drafted. And Kobe never, ever tried to disguise the fact that he didn't particularly like Shaquille O'Neal. So, I mean, if you're that honest about how you feel, then I'm going to take that to the bank when, you know, he was dismissive about some of the things. Phil, but Kobe wasn't really dismissive about what Phil had to say. He was really dismissive about the fact that you would reveal it in a book.
Okay, but are you still saying that you continue to hold that against Phil Jackson for sort of opening Pandora's box on Kobe?
No. Well, see, you can use that language. To me, what is there not to respect about the great Phil Jackson? So the respect is there. But what Phil Jackson has to respect is that while we can all appreciate, praise, and recognize your greatness as a coach, and we assume that it's going to continue as an executive, that doesn't make you flawless either. Phil Jackson wrote a book.
Telling secrets.
Telling secrets.
Yeah, in short.
And to me, that is not something a coach, any coach, should ever do to a player, to any player, but especially a star player that helped win you 5 championships.
I get it, but I don't think we can leap to the conclusion that no Phil book, no Henry Abbott story. You know, like I don't think it set the table for Henry Abbott.
I'm not implying that, but what I am saying is that what Henry Abbott did could essentially be surmised and as an extension of what Phil did. So for Phil to tweet, go get him, Flea. You see what I'm saying? As if go after Henry Abbott for doing what he did. Well, actually, Henry Abbott didn't do anything but his job. Henry Abbott's job is that of a journalist or, you know, investigative story, you know, writing what he wrote. That's his job. Phil Jackson's job was to coach, not to write a book telling secrets about a player that won 5 championships. If anything, Henry Abbott's more in the right than Phil was.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But then how in the world did Phil Jackson manage to return to the Lakers and win with Kobe Bryant?
Because we all, first of all, America's the land of second chances. Just because just because Phil did that doesn't make Phil a bad guy. It certainly doesn't dismiss or diminish his credentials as a great coach. Phil Jackson, to me, is a great ambassador for the game of basketball. I just disagree with that particular decision he made. But give credit and props to Kobe Bryant, because Kobe Bryant was able to shove all of that aside in order to capture championships.
Yeah, put Eagles aside because I want to win.
You're trying to win?
At the end of the day.
That's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think I think it's a lesson all of us can learn.
Right.
You can sit there. If somebody can help you achieve the ultimate goal, you know what? It doesn't
Partner up.
Partner up.
So do you believe...
You can work with the devil. I can work with the devil if it's about winning.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
I don't know if you spoke to Kobe about this, but do you believe that he wanted Phil to return again last year?
Kobe Bryant was always open to Phil Jackson returning. Kobe Bryant is just not going to make that decision for Jim Buss and the Lakers organization. He lets them know how he feels, and he leaves it up to them. But keep in mind, Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss have both basically said, this is our organization, players play, we run the organization. Mitch Kupchak has stated it, and Jim Buss has certainly acted like it. So as a result of it, if you're Kobe Bryant, like he said to me on many occasions, my time to leave this organization was back when I was a free agent and I was entertaining the Clippers and the Chicago Bulls. I'm not going anywhere. This is it for me. I'm a Laker for life after he signed that deal, and that is what it is.
Okay.
So he leaves it up to them.
Well, I believe we're going to have Jeannie Buss on the show tomorrow.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure Jeannie wanted Phil to return to coach
Yeah,
a
she
year
said
ago.
she felt betrayed. She's been quoted as saying that. Meanwhile, let's talk about this Henry Abbott article. In response to the Henry Abbott article, I guess we're talking about Jeannie Buss, but in response to that Henry Abbott article, not only did Phil Jackson and Flea respond, Paul George said that Kobe article was crazy, media reaching. He was also quoted in our sources saying he didn't want to come to L.A. because he didn't want to play with Kobe. And he was saying, no, that is infinitely not true.
Well, first of all, he's in a position to say that because he knows what he's going to do. He would be an authority on that particular subject. So if that's what Paul George says, we need to take him at his word. And I want to preface my comments by saying Paul George is for them as a basketball player, as a professional athlete. I'm not talking about his personal life because I don't know about all of that. But as a professional athlete, he's first class in terms of being a decent guy, really good to talk to and get to know. And he's one of those guys we should root for to elevate as a star in this league because I think that he would accept that role gracefully and try to be the best that he could be. With that being said, he, like many of these guys in the NBA, NFL, and beyond, they're going to have to grow up and stop sitting there and constantly talking about the media. That argument has gotten so old, so fast. It's really getting to the point where they're coming across as children. How about this? Let me make far be it for me to make this suggestion. Why don't you guys get rid of your handlers, business managers, publicists, and all of this other stuff, and just man up when you're asked a question, answer it. And let's see where you would be then. I don't believe people who hire spin doctors to control messages that disseminate about them get to turn around and blame the media when the media doesn't write what you want them to write or say what you want them to say. Maybe if you didn't have a bunch of people shielding you, or dare I say lying for you, then you wouldn't have to worry about people coming after you. Maybe if you didn't prolong matters by constantly creating layers to go through before somebody could get at the truth, maybe you wouldn't have these issues. So I think that's important to be said because the argument about the media has gotten old a real long time ago.
Blame the media.
It's real weak.
The Saints will face the Packers this Sunday. If they lose, they will fall to 2-5. Since the playoffs expanded in 1990, just 4 teams that have started 2-5 had made the playoffs. That last team being Tim Tebow's Broncos, actually. Interesting note there. Our NFL analyst for the day, Jonathan Vilma, hanging out with us. He is here on behalf of NBC Sports, where you are an NFL analyst, but you're doing a little moonlighting for us.
Well, you guys invited me. I had to show up.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm glad they allowed you to come here and sit with us. So let's talk about your former team, the Saints. How much trouble are they in?
You know, they're not in that much trouble. If you look at that division, statistically, they're the best offensively. They're the best defensively in the NFC South. They can win that division. They're only a game out, game and a half out, whatever it is. They have a lot of time. Their schedule isn't that daunting. I really see them coming out and winning that division. They're going to be the worst of the playoff teams to go to the playoffs, but they're going to win that. They have the best quarterback as well.
They're going to win that division.
They're going to win that division,
But how much faith do you really have in them going forward?
Well, the question is, how much trouble are they in? If you make the playoffs, then you're in no trouble. You're the best of 12 other teams. Well, they're going to host a game. If they win the division, they're going to host a game. It'll be a wild card game. And again, they have the best quarterback in the South. Offensively, defensively, they're the best statistically in the South, so they're going to win that division. They're going to host a playoff game. It's going to be like Seattle when, unfortunately, I remember that. We went up there and we got our butts kicked, and they were 7-9.
Well, at one point, Stephen A was really high on the Saints, but most recently he dethroned them, calling them the Aints. Stephen A.
Oh, come on. You can't do that, Steve.
Yes, I can. Yes, I most certainly can. And I would tell you this. First of all, you brought up a really sour memory for me because when you guys went up to Seattle, I believe y'all went 12-4 that year. I think that is the stupidest rule, maybe in all of sports. You're 12-4, and because Seattle wins its division at 7-9, they get to host a playoff game because there's no way they win that playoff game.
That's a debate for another day.
It just makes me sick. Well, he brought it up. It just makes me sick. But I will say this: so does your defense right now. and Rob Ryan,
is it still yours?
I guess for this year, it's still mine for this year.
Here's my issue. Rob Ryan, at one time, the only thing I had a problem with about him was his weight and his hairdo. You know, I just said, you want to be a head coach, just cut to here. You know, get on the elliptical machine just for a little bit. Work out with you in the morning. Now I look at this defense, man. What are they, 28th? They're 28th against the pass. They're 23rd against, 11th against the rush. I'm just not impressed with them. I knew that Darren Sproles, his loss was going to affect this offense, but I'm like, it's Drew Brees. Still got Colston. Still got Jimmy Graham. You'll figure it out. You know, it's no big deal. You'll figure it out. You got Sean Payton. You'll figure it out. I did not expect this defense to look this bad. And that's why I called them the Aints. I put the bag over my head because I'm done with them. Because to me, it's not about the playoffs. I thought New Orleans was going to come out of the NFC. I said they're going to win enough. They're going to win the division. They're going to win enough games to have home field advantage. And because I didn't believe Skip when he said Seattle was going to go 15-1, and I said New Orleans is going to have the best record in the NFC. They're going to have to come through New Orleans to get to the Super Bowl, and nobody's coming into the Superdome to beat them. And then Rob Ryan and that defense showed up, and it's just been an embarrassment.
Who's the best in the NFC then? NFC South. Who comes out of that division?
Well, I would agree with you that New Orleans still has a shot because I'm not a believer in Carolina.
Okay.
And I don't believe in, obviously, Atlanta. Something's wrong with them, their offensive line, their defense. Matt Ryan can't protect them. By the way, Matt Ryan seems to have lost a little bit too much weight. That's just me, the eye test. I don't like how he looks right now.
Well, you're on some tangents over there.
It was a Ben Roethlisberger.
I'm just saying, I'm used to seeing him a little bit bigger. But in the end, New Orleans got a chance to come out of the division. I'm just not sold on them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. It's almost like they'll get to the playoffs by default because they were in the NFC South.
And you did pick the Saints.
That's right.
Early on.
I jumped off the bandwagon weeks ago.
Super Bowl.
I put a bag on my head.
You did. You put a bag
okay?
on your
That's how I feel about the Aints. Defense.
That's so extreme. That's so extreme.
You believe in that defense?
I don't believe in the defense right now. But when I look at them and I watch them on film, it's not because the athleticism. It's not the ability. It's the communication. That's all it is. I promise you, I'm watching.
How are you having communication issues right now, man? This is not a new coach.
I understand.
Not a bunch
but
of
you have Rob Ryan, who can be very complex at times. Rob Ryan puts a lot of trust. He puts a lot of trust in his players. He loves his players almost to a fault, where he says, look, guys, I know how good you are and how good you can be. I'm going to empower you to go out there and make the checks that you need to make the decisions that you need to make that I can't make for you on the sideline. When you have smart players, when you have good players, it works. And his defense looks great. When the communication, there's a breakdown, you have 10 guys that are right, one guy that's wrong, it's a touchdown.
My man.
And all of a sudden it's a problem.
Jonathan Vilma, how many games have been played this season by the New Orleans Saints right now?
6 games.
How many sacks do they have?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Back in. Skip, get in here, please.
We'll get to that.
How much trouble are they in?
I think they're in a lot of trouble. And I'm thinking Carolina's going to win this division. They're 3-3-1, so they have a half-game edge over a 2-4 Saints. And again, the NFC South makes the AFC East look like a beast right now because this is really a bad division. But the Saints have lost their edge, their ability to close games. They keep losing late. They lost late at Atlanta, 37-34, late at Cleveland, 26-24, and we just saw late at the Lions, 24-23. And Dallas took it out on them, and that was a revenge game, as you know, from the year before on Sunday Night Football. That was 24-0 at halftime. But still, something is wrong here, and it's not just with Rob Ryan. It's also with the offense that can't find its way anymore. I love the three backs. I know Mark Ingram's been a little banged up, but Kyrie I really like him. I like Pierre Thomas, and you would think with a three-headed monster of backs that they could start putting the ball in their hands, but we know that Sean Payton and Drew Brees are not going to utilize that run game the way it probably should be. So I think they're going to struggle, and I don't like Carolina on defense any more than New Orleans, but I do like Cam Newton right now over Drew Brees. I just do.
Why would you like Cam Newton over Drew Brees right now? For what have you seen from Cam Newton?
They're going to have some head-to-heads coming up. I just like their offense better. I just like their grit a little better. And they've had some games. Nobody's played very well, but remember, Detroit went to Carolina and got blown out. It was 37-14. And I looked at Carolina and said, that's pretty good. And then Carolina had a chance to win in overtime, obviously, at Cincinnati, and they were lucky that the field goal missed.
Yeah, so they tied.
So that's the half game that
they
had.
might as well be a loss.
I mean, to me, I take the number 2 offense in the NFL, New Orleans Saints right now, over Carolina, who's 20-something right now. They can't run the ball. Cam Newton has never been known as a passer. Drew Brees is a passer, and he has a run game. That's why I'm taking them.
But their defense is more reliable.
Whose?
Carolina.
Have you seen them?
Excuse me? I don't need to see them, but somebody, listen, I know
they are allowing the most yards per rush carry.
I know they gave up 37 points to Cincinnati, which is not impressive. I get all of that.
Okay.
But I'm saying to you, despite all of that, you take in the totality of their efforts. I saw them get smacked around by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
You take into account the totality of what they did this season, and you look at New Orleans, you just see a defensive unit in New Orleans that just seems inferior, especially compared to what they used to be and what we expected from Robert. It was fourth-ranked defense for last year, for crying out loud. What the hell happened to them?
It's communication. I'm telling you, that's what happened.
Are you telling us he's trusting his players too much?
No, he's not trusting his players too much. It's almost to a fault. And it goes back to one simple check, and you could have an interception as opposed to a touchdown. Make a play on the ball. A Golden Tate, Detroit, one of those third down, third and long. Make the play.
I didn't hear you bring up the fact that him and Sean Payton don't seem to be on the same page either. We saw them arguing a couple times. You left that out, Jonathan Vilma.
I leave that out because I know what was said, and I know that Rob Ryan, he does not defy authority. I know that.
You guys see this on Sunday? Second quarter of the Chiefs' 23-20 win over the Chargers. Jamal Charles, say that fast, took a vicious hit from former teammate Brandon Flowers on an impressive touchdown run. Charles was on the Dan Lebron show, and he talked about the hit. Let's listen.
It definitely hurt. It's like I woke up. So like a couple plays later, I just seeing like bugs are just like light bugs are just around my eyes, and I was trying to catch them. But I was in the game, so I'm like, all right, let's go let's get the ball and run again. Yeah, I'm thinking I didn't have a concussion, but it definitely was a hit that shocked me. But I don't think I had to go through the concussion protocols and all that because I didn't want to go through that again, like what happened to the playoffs. So I was definitely fine. I think I came out pretty good.
He says he doesn't think he had a concussion, and he thinks he came out pretty good. I didn't know. That's him evaluating himself. Yeah. Former player, tell us, what should the protocol be for concussions in that situation?
Well, the protocol should be what it is. It is if you get dinged, you walk, you look wobbly, they take you over, take your helmet away, the doctors assess you and say if you can go back in or not. This Jamal Charles situation, this is something that kind of reminds me, and please just don't take it out of context, where you have a groin injury, a hamstring injury, where you have different grades. So it's a grade 0, grade 1, 2, or 3. I've had times where I've been tight in my groin. I said, you know what, I just need to stretch it out. I'll be fine. I didn't have to go to the trainer and say, hey, my groin is tight. Should I still play or not? Same thing with the Jamal Charles. He's saying, I got dinged. All right. It's, how do I feel? I think I can play. I'm good to go. And he goes out and he performs well. If he said, hey, doc, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling a little woozy. Something's wrong. Okay, let's test you now for concussion. Can you go back in? Can you not go back in? That's a doctor's assessment. Did he have a concussion? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I know that he was able to play. And if we're going to follow the same protocol for any other type of injury and you have different grades, then if he's going to say he can still play and he goes out and plays and performs, there's no reason to all of a sudden stop him, put him on the sideline and say, okay, we're going to test you. I understand the precautions, but you have to be able to let the player understand if he can play or not.
Should his admission on Dan Lebron's show prompt the Chiefs or the NFL to reassess his status? Should he be under the protocol? Because he said, I was seeing light bugs and I'm trying to catch them. That's pretty scary to me. That means something went pretty wrong.
Something went wrong, but he was able to play. I've had situations like that where I actually
stars or whatever
saw stars. Yep. I actually one time, 2009, I tackled Marion Barber. I literally blacked out for a second. But I came to really quickly. But instead of getting up, I just laid there. And I said, you know what, I don't want to get up and be wobbly and all of a sudden I have to go through the protocol. So I'm just going to lay there, wait for the doctors to come. I came to my senses. They said, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. Got up, jogged off, and I was good to go. So it's hard to say, okay, now on Monday, because I admitted what's happening, I need to go back in, because it's the same thing with a hamstring. If my hamstring is fine, I can play, then don't call me in on Monday to say, okay, let's check out your hamstring and see if you can play or not. Oh, now you can't play. But I just played the whole game Sunday.
I'm somewhat alarmed by what you're saying in this respect.
Okay.
Considering the lawsuits that have been filed by former players and what have you in the age that we're living in, where the NFL has to watch itself and has to protect its interests because of the millions, if not billions, that are being pursued on the part of former players, CTE, and now you hear of players playing now and some of the things that they go through. I don't know where to go with this, to be quite honest with you, because from what you're saying, that would open them up to all kinds of troubles if indeed it's found out that y'all had a problem, but you were still allowed to continue to go out there and play. Then you got a coach like Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati just a week ago bringing up how he's never seen, the concussions linger for as long as they have.
They blamed it on the media.
That's right, and blamed it on the media. Help me out here. I don't know where to go with this because based on what you're saying, Marvin Lewis wasn't wrong for saying what he said, if that's your mentality.
This is from a former player's perspective.
Okay.
And I'm telling you from my perspective, I want to play. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to play football.
Well, then do you believe that players should have to sign some kind of waiver or what have you where the NFL isn't culpable in the event that it's found out that even though you wanted to play, you had no business playing?
No, because it's now the NFL's responsibility to tell me, hey, you can't play. You have a concussion. You need to be on the sideline.
Okay, so when you laid on the ground, 2009, after Marion Barber tagged you, should you have been saved from yourself? Is that what you're saying? That somebody should have carted you off or helped you off and sat you down and said you're out?
If I stood up and I was a little wobbly or I couldn't, make eye contact and they said, are you okay? And I'm looking around saying, yeah, I'm fine. Then it's the doctor's responsibility to stop me and say, hey, we need to check you out.
So let's be clear.
Go ahead.
Feisty, combative, righteous Jonathan Vilma is saying that essentially the decision should be taken out of your hands and you should be subjected to the stipulations imposed upon by the NFL, without consideration for your opinion. They should just do what they feel is right. They should have protocol, and it shouldn't matter what you say or think as a player.
If they want to avoid these lawsuits that are coming up, they need to take the certain responsibilities and the certain protocols that they put in place to stop players from playing with
even
concussion.
Without player involvement, is what I'm saying. You have nothing to do with that decision.
A minute left. You want to get in here, Skip?
Then are you okay that you would sign something post-career saying, I will not sue the NFL for my ongoing mental issues?
That, again, you have to be accountable because there's two different things here. If someone's saying, well, I wanted to play, and I got concussions, and then you're trying to sue, that's one thing. There's another thing. If you said, hey, doc, I'm feeling woozy, what's going on? They said, oh, you're fine. Here's a smelling salt, go back out and play. That's two different scenarios.
Okay. All right.
Well, we're taking a moment to step outside the sports world to note the passing of one of the legends in American journalism. Ben Bradlee, the former executive editor of the Washington Post and the man who oversaw the Post's reporting on Watergate and the Pentagon Papers, has passed away at the age of 93. He died of natural causes in his home, and as you can see there, the Washington Post honoring Bradlee on the front page with the headline that says, quote, an editor of legendary impact. Skip Bayless, how will you remember Bradlee?
Stephen A. Smith, the guts with which this man ran the Washington Post had a profound impact on me as a young journalist coming out of Vanderbilt University. Ben Bradlee demanded of his staff that they get the story first and that they get it right. He was the driving force, as you well know, behind two now legendary reporters, Woodward and Bernstein, who took down a United States president, which obviously led to a book and a movie called All the President's Men. Jason Robards played the great Ben Bradlee. And this was a shining and tone-setting and responsible example of source journalism. Remember, Deep Throat was the source, and finally Deep Throat revealed himself in 2005. But this was an example how source journalism can be used, as we use it today, you use it all the time, ESPN.com, to keep our viewers and readers informed the way they should be informed. And we all owe a debt of gratitude to the tone that this man set.
He definitely did set the tone. He was an inspiration to all of us. I was only 5 years old when the whole Watergate scandal unfolded. And when you know about the history of Watergate and the role that the Washington Post played in it, and you realize that this man was the leader of it all, you just can't say enough about him. When we think about the field of journalism, yes, we want style, you want impact, and he certainly required both of those things. But being
responsible,
being responsible.
Yep.
Being in constant pursuit of the truth, being tireless, understanding you don't punch a clock. You work until the story is done, and you keep on pushing, on pushing. I had the pleasure throughout the years of knowing the great George Solomon, the former sports editor at the Washington Post, and he epitomized.
He had a lot of Ben Bradlee in it.
He had a lot of Ben Bradlee in it. And so we've lost a great, great ambassador in the field of journalism today, and we're just honored to be associated